so-called Black Hole of Hong Kong, which was a house on Blue Pool Road, including 2 Canadian officers. Blue Pool Road, around 30 civilians at different visits, 1915. Now we will toast to the fallen, of course, in the traditional Grand Prix. Ladies and gentlemen, the King, the Great White Emperor, and the American Constitution as well. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Donald Cook, and this is Yasuko Cook. And I am the host and originator of the material for the YouTube channel HistoryN Truth. We live in the Goto Islands in Nagasaki Prefecture. We come to Japan. I came to Japan 30 years ago, and my specialty is history, although I've been teaching English in kindergartens, elementary schools, junior high schools, senior high schools, even in universities, hospitals, and for the past few years, well, several years, before retiring, I have been teaching in a juku. Now I am semi-retired and only teach once a week, which gives me more time to prepare history content for the YouTube channel. We now have 36,000 views and 91 videos. We came here to Yokohama to honor and tell the story of the fallen of World War II, and in particular, the fallen of the Battle of Hong Kong. The Battle of Hong Kong ended on December 25th, 1941, on a date called Black Christmas. Following the fall of Hong Kong, British, Canadian, Indian, and Australian soldiers were imprisoned there, and not too long afterwards were sent to prison camps in Japan, in particular here in Yokohama. On December 25th, 1941, the British forces, the British and Commonwealth forces of Hong Kong surrendered. That was the end of the Battle of Hong Kong. Following that, they were interned on the island and eventually sent here to Japan. Those who are buried, or their remains are buried in the Yokohama Commonwealth War Cemetery, are those who were captured that Black Christmas at the fall of Hong Kong. So everybody buried at the Commonwealth War Cemetery were captured then. In several of my documentaries, I am using for sources regimental histories, Marine Corps histories, and the regimental histories being of Canadian, British, and Australian regiments. And I mix them all together to make one long story. Sometimes it seems like I am repeating, but not really, because it's a different regiment's story. Japan was in 6 wars from Meiji Jidai to Taiheiyo Senzo. And in the first war, Japan was the good guys. Many of those fellows were interned here in Japan, and even became famous for creating a well-known brass band during the period of the First World War. And this orchestra introduced a lot of German chamber music to Japan. Following the Second World War, yes, at the end of the Second World War, Japan and Germany, as well as Italy, were viewed as not necessarily such a great group of countries. But due to the Cold War and the NATO alliances, and as well as the G7 and other alliances in support of the West's efforts to control socialism and the expansion of communism, we have had many decades, more than half a century, of cooperation in alliances. So we are doing pretty good altogether now. How about history and the means of how it's been taught in general for the past few decades? For many years, the veterans of the Second World War, even the First World War, and into Korea and into Vietnam, were still around, and they could still tell their own stories. Now those people have all faded away. Their time has passed, and no one is left to tell their stories. We can't allow for historic revisionism to change their stories into something that it was not. We must look at history as the whole picture of every story, not just a fragment, and expound on that. History of a lot of times now is taught by people who have no idea about the full history of any particular period. Imagine a history book. Open the book. Close your eyes. Put your finger at a random place in the book. Read that one sentence. Misunderstand the sentence. Misunderstand its context. Throw the book away and make up your own story. That is the status of how history is generally taught today. We must try to correct that, read the whole book, read other books, and tell the correct full story. I finished my service in Germany and in the Canadian Army, returned to university, and then afterwards I applied and was given a job by the Japanese Boards of Education to come to Japan and teach in the high schools. I was the first ALT in Hiroshima Board of Education's Education Center. From there, I went on to teach at different companies and different businesses and different schools.
How many years ago?
I arrived here 30 years ago, and I have been teaching pretty much steadily straight through.
In Hiroshima?
Yes, the first 6 years were in Hiroshima. I arrived in Nagasaki in 1998. I also taught for 1 year in Fukuoka, in Ogori, and 1 year in Karatsu, in the town of Genkai. More like Japan chose me, actually. I was hired by the Board of Education of Hiroshima.
日本が僕を選んでくれたのかなね。
So, Japan chose me, and I decided to stay. But I also decided to move to warmer areas from Hiroshima to southern Japan.
カナダはもうすごく寒いところなので、暖かいところを求めてやってきたら長崎に今はたどり着いたかな。
Within Japan, we have further plans too. We have a plan, perhaps next year, to also do a series of history documentaries about Nobunaga, Hideyoshi, and Ieyasu. We also have a plan for other historical events in Japanese history. Next year, our plan will be to return to the Yokohama Commonwealth War Cemetery and speak once again about the history, the stories of those who are there, and we will also discuss and talk about the Bakamatsu and the Treaty of Kanagawa. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun in the morning, we will know them. This concludes